talking some baseball now. Seth Everett joins us now from NBC Sports Radio, MLB Baseball Insider, as we get ready for the Phillies back in action today, trying to make it 5 in a row. We'll talk some Phils. We'll talk some baseball with Seth here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Welcome back, my friend. How are you?
Hey, good to be on with you, Mike. What's going on?
Yeah, man, we got a lot going on here. The Northeast baseball corridor is heating up here. We had I was down in Baltimore this weekend for the Red Sox and the Orioles. The Phillies have won 4 in a row. The Yankees are red hot, and the Mets really struggling along. So we'll kind of focus in on some of those teams. Let's start with the local team, the Phillies here, who have won 4 in a row. Go ahead.
So then you saw Matt Barnes then.
I saw Matt Barnes. Where would I have saw Matt Barnes? No, I was at the game on Saturday. I was not there Sunday.
Okay, you're not there Sunday. Sunday was when he threw behind Machado's head.
That's right. Yes. I was driving that day, so I missed that whole kind of thing going on, but I was there Saturday. That's a nice team down there, that Orioles team, by the way, that you talked about last week, just needing one more pitcher. And I was listening to a lot of the radio down there when I was in Baltimore, and they were kind of same sentiments that, man, the pitching has been outstanding for them, but how long can it hold up for that Orioles team? And you got a kind of little picture of what that AL East is going to be a lot of fun with the Yankees kind of creeping in there as well.
Well, I'll tell you one funny thing. Dan Duquette's a sarcastic guy. I used to do a show with his cousin, Jim, and so I know Dan pretty well. And he talked about Dylan Bundy, and he says, for everybody who claims that we need a pitcher, he says Dylan Bundy wasn't a guy that I just found off the scrap heap. Who doesn't know? And he was talking to the beat writers that he's our number 1 prospect and has been for 3 years.
Yeah. Right, they got a lot of those guys down there too. The Orioles team, heck, they gave away Arrieta. I mean, they had a lot of pitchers come through that system.
Well, and Arrieta needed a change of scenery. I do not blame them for Arrieta. I think that the thing is Kevin Gossman is there. Yeah. Chris Tillman is a free agent at the end of the year, and Phillies fans will understand. This is the time. This is the difference in the Phillies run of last decade versus this Orioles run. Is that the Orioles didn't have 08, but this is the 2010 Phillies. They're close. They're so close. And if you remember, that was the Cliff Lee year. The next year was the Roy Halladay year. And what the Orioles are hoping is, as that nucleus is together, because Machado's a free agent at the end of 18, if they can put this together and make a run at the Red Sox and win this division, they could have the championship amidst this little Buck Showalter run that nobody seems to be talking about because they haven't had that big prize.
They are talking about it down there inside that AL East where they lead by 2 right now. That's an interesting division because the Yankees, their hot start, they won 7 of 10. The Blue Jays have been terrible, but of course they've been a playoff team. So how do you kind of break down this first month of that AL East?
Well, the Blue Jays are alarming. There's no secret to that. They lost. They're out west, and they lose to the Angels, who stink. And they're to me they can't get out of their own way. The best thing that happened to the Blue Jays was they bought themselves 10 days because the Maple Leafs were in that great series with the Washington Capitals. And don't think that didn't affect it. I said, how many times do you think John Gibbons' name was mentioned on Toronto Sports Radio? I think ultimately, and I've said this before, I think the Orioles hang with Boston. I'm not a believer in the Yankees. No offense to anybody who's listening, but I just think the Yankees don't have the horses as far as the pitching is concerned. CC Sabathia is on borrowed time. Michael Pineda has never been consistent. Now Pineda is an interesting thing because if Pineda can pitch, now all of a sudden they have somebody to complement Tanaka. I think that can actually help. So we'll see. But I'm not in love with the Yankees, even when they won 8 in a row. My attitude is, everybody knows about Boston, but I like the Orioles.
Let's go into the Phils as we were starting there, and the Phils have won 4 in a row. Okay, we see them sweep the Braves, which you should. They beat the Mets in that series here. The Mets have kind of been a mess recently. They've only won 2 out of their last 10. But the Phils have an interesting story. We talked a little bit about them last week, but Clay Buchholz gets hurt, Seth, and Eflin comes up, and he pitches a good game. You've got injury to Kendrick in the outfield. Altherr gets a shot. He's been ripping it off. The Phillies have been trying to plug holes with these older veterans to spin them off, and it's these young guys who have been stepping in and giving them some good work.
Well, it shows that there's some growth, and Zach Eflin is a guy who is going to make the most of the opportunity. The idea is Hellickson is the elder statement on that rotation, and I even consider him a prospect. It's kind of amazing the way things have gone for this organization. I've been really impressed with the second baseman Hernandez. I like what I've seen from him. Franco's a guy that I've started to like. I made the joke when I was at the Phillies home opener, and I said that there was not a person in the stands with the jersey of a guy on the actual roster. Right. That's kind of amazing. But this nucleus is growing, and they're doing. Together as a unit, they're taking stock into what they have, and it's starting to, be on the uptick. I've always said for the Phillies, they spent 2 extra years going downward. They should have recognized what had gone on and started the rebuild process. And people want to blame Ruben Amaro, whatever it is. The fact of the matter is now you're starting to see that upswing. I get asked this on social media all the time. How long? I'm not putting a number on it. I'm not going to say 2 years. I'm not going to say 3 years. The Nationals are in this crisis now. They have Bryce Harper for like 10 more minutes. They don't know what they're going to do. Once Harper's down, are they going to break that whole thing down? I'm not a big believer in the Mets. I think their lineup's left to be desired. So, if you look at all these teams, where do the Phillies fit in that mix? That remains to be seen.
That's interesting. The Mets have lost 4 in a row. They're 8-11 as we close the month of April. You just said you're not a big believer in them. Many people thought this was their year. This was the Mets year. So what is it about the Mets that is failing them? I know a lot of them are hurt. I mean, you watch a game, you see more guys in the dugout than you do on the field.
Well, people think it's because I have an axe to grind against them. I don't. I mean, there's plenty. Terry Collins is a guy I'm a huge fan of, and I'm a huge believer in. Let me put it to you this way: for a team that has these starters the way they are, I have not allowed, and I've made this suggestion. I do not understand how you have such a small window with these starters the way they have it. And you're going to put Curtis Granderson in center field. You're going to put Jose Reyes at third base. You're going to put Travis d'Arnaud behind the plate, and you're going to have Lucas Duda at first base, and you're just going to keep your fingers crossed. I don't understand that. If the Mets win, one of those guys, Granderson or Reyes, is comeback player of the year. What team goes into a season with that kind of pitching and say, well, let's just fingers crossed, because one of those things is going to catch lightning in a bottle. I like Cespedes, but I don't think Cespedes to me is not Harper. He's not Trout. He's not Machado. He's a good player, but he's not that kind of player. I just think there's a notch below, and that's where he fits, and he's all their offense.
Yeah, that's a good point. Seth Everett's with us, NBC Sports Radio here, MLB Insider. And Seth, are the Cubs who have not played great? They've won 5 out of the last 10, 500 ball over the last 10 days. They just going to win that division by default, or are the Cubs a better team than they were last year? What do you say about this Cubs team and that Central Division that doesn't look all that imposing right now?
Well, the thing is, Cincinnati's got out to a nice start, and so is Milwaukee, and I'm happy for both those organizations. I like Milwaukee, by the way, more than the Reds. And I like this kid, Eric Thames. I love that he's, mashing, and I think that's just cool, and I like a new story. You know what I mean? Just new blood. The Cardinals, who beat up this weekend, who beat up on the Brewers, they're interesting because they're going to get Toronto. And they've been scuffling, and they're just a game under. The Cubbies are going to have a little bit of a fight on their hand. They're still the best team in the division by a lot. I thought the best credible threats were obviously St. Louis and Pittsburgh, and I wasn't sold on either the Pirates or the Cardinals. So it's probably by default. The only thing that I can say, and Joe Madden says this as well, is you want them to have meaningful games. You don't want them to run away with the whole thing, because then they're not battle-tested. I know that the nucleus is still there, and this is pretty much the same team, and I love what they've done with Jason Hayward, but I just like meaningful games and not just a coronation for them.
Yeah, and you look down in the West, you're talking about changes too. You got Colorado and Arizona on top of L.A. as we're kind of looking at the first month of the baseball season. Are those two teams a surprise for you? Or did you think Colorado and Arizona, they're playing really well? I mean, really good baseball, maybe some of the best in all of the game.
Well, good for Bud Black,
right?
and my Rockies. I started my career. That was the first team I ever covered, and I'm thrilled that what they've done. Colorado's done something that I'd love to see the Phillies do, and that is, just bring in a pitching expert who is going to look at every one of your pitchers that, somebody's written something nice about, that nobody in baseball really knows who they are, and just say, I want to go to war with these guys, and I'm either going to be a believer or I'm not. And that's what he's kind of done in that first month, and it's really responded. Don't be surprised that when the Rockies hit. I mean, they were going to hit. They're the Rockies. They play at Coors Field. Mm-hmm. I love the emergence of the pitching, and I think Bud Black's done a remarkable job. I'm happy about Arizona. Arizona's got talent. It just seemed like everything backfired last year. I don't know necessarily about the staying power of either one, but we have to talk about the big elephant in the room, and that is what's going on with the San Francisco Giants. If it's early, and we've predicated every conversation that we've had with, well, I know it's early, then why isn't it early for San Francisco? Why is it panic in the streets of San Francisco? And probably because, Madison Bumgarner's out with a dirt bike. How are the Giants going to recover? What kind of a season are they going to have? Because I think that's the team. I make no secret about it. I picked the Giants at the beginning of the year, and I've loved what I've seen from San Francisco. I'd be very surprised to see if the Giants don't make a season of this and that the cream kind of rises to the top. I'm super thrilled for Colorado and Arizona. Give me excuses to watch them more.
Good stuff with Seth Everett here. You mentioned the Pirates, and it kind of triggered something off in my head there because of McCutchen, and you wonder, is this the year? Is there a big name that I know we're only in late April, but as April turns to May, things start moving fast. Will there be a big name on the move? And is this the year the Pirates finally move on from McCutchen?
It's interesting. I want to see what the Pirates do as far as their season is concerned. They've been a team that I kind of circled as I wasn't sold on. In spring training, I wanted to believe. I wanted to think that they could contend. I still think they can. It's just the thing is, it also depends on what kind of a season McCutchen has. He had a lousy year last year, and there's no secret about that. How does he respond to that? Does he have a typical Andrew McCutchen year? Because if he does, then the market goes higher. I just don't think they're giving him away. They've talked about wanting to deal him, but they were asking for a king's ransom from Washington and Boston. And, right now, I don't think he would be a fit on either one of those teams. Where he'd be great? I hate to say it, the Mets. He'd be perfect on the Mets. He'd be the best player on the Mets.
Well, not if he played like he did last year.
Well, right. Well, if he's good enough to want to trade. Now, if he doesn't respond, he's not getting dealt because nobody's going to want him.
All right, Seth Everett, the baseball season about 1 month into the books. The Phillies take on the Marlins, a early season matchup with the Marlins. The Phillies had a brutal schedule, Seth. They had to take on Washington and New York, 12 of their first, 18 games there. So they got through 500. Not too bad. Interdivisional. I like that. I like the playing your teams in your division. I think that's better. I have that hockey mentality. I want to see the Flyers. I don't want to see the Flyers play the Avalanche or the Coyotes. I want to see them play the Rangers, the Islanders, and the Devils all the time, and beat the hell out of each other. That's what I want. And it's kind of amazing, for baseball. Because of the cockamamie interleague play, and I can't stand interleague play, you can only play interdivisional games so much, and I would want more games against the National League West and the National League Central. This idea that you only play them one series a year, right? All right, man. We'll catch up again next week. Talk some more baseball as the baseball season hitting the second month here just in a couple of days right after the NFL draft. Seth Everett, NBC Sports Radio. Thanks, pal.
You got it, man.